Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, where we break down the latest and greatest World Cup action. And what, gentlemen, have we just seen unfurl in front of our eyes these past couple of hours? Truly historic scenes. Argentina win their third World Cup as Lionel Messi completes the set on the international stage in what could be his final game for the Albi Celeste. Now, I think most of us, at least, thought France would grind out a victory in the final, robbing Messi of the perfect end to a perfect career, but it didn't happen. Thank God. Here to relive it with me, it's Dukes, it's Pat. Gentlemen, can you take over for me, because I'm far too excited. I want to, first of all, talk about the performances of the big boys, because the big narrative in this fixture, ahead of this fixture, was Messi versus Mbappe. And to an extent, well, not to an extent, they emphatically both delivered. Obviously, one only goes home with a trophy, but both can leave the pitch with their head held high. Do you want to talk about Messi first?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Because, I mean, after this game, it's kind of a happy story. You know, the thing is, once it went to penalties, we were all extremely concerned, because I think we were all rooting for Argentina out there. But I predicted Argentina to win after the group stage, but that was as much kind of desire, hope, as it was kind of a real expectation. But actually, in this final, I thought they made good on everything that they've shown up until now. We all kind of said, oh, what happens when they meet a tougher team? Well, they dominated, and a big part of the reason they dominated was Messi. He just transmitted that calm to the team throughout the game, especially in midfield in that first half, when France could not get close to them, and in the penalty shootout did it again, went and scored and went and celebrated, almost as if to make a point. We don't need to be scared in this situation. And you can't really ask for much more in a final than what he gave you today. 2 tackles, which was the third most for Argentina in this match, which actually says quite a bit about France. 3 key passes, 5 shots, 2 goals. He's ended up with 7 goals and 3 assists, which matches Maradona's goal contributions for that legendary '86 World Cup. He was second for chances created at this World Cup, first for shots, third for dribbles. He just was everywhere all the time, an inspirational captain. And let's be honest, this team is maybe the least talented Argentina team we've seen him play in a lot of ways. But it's a really good, well-marshalled defence with Messi stuck on top of it. But that requires Messi to do magical things, and throughout this tournament he has done magical things. And finally, he's ended his career with the game doing a little bit of magic for him and giving him the trophy that he deserves. I
mean, he became the first player to clock 20+ goals and assists at World Cup finals. And his record prior to this was good, but not, you know, the best. Let's talk about someone who did clock up some of the best numbers then at Qatar 2022, Mbappe, who became the highest scoring player in the actual final. He's now got 4 goals, and only the second player to score a hat-trick right after Jeff Hurst. He's 23. Can you break down his performance for us, Dukes? Because he almost dragged France to their third World Cup.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it was really more about moments than consistent devastation that we've seen Mbappe in some of these other games. He had quite a quiet quarter-final against England, fairly quiet in the semi-final against Morocco. But I thought the second goal in particular tonight was absolute quality, that sort of half volley. You know, stuck away 3 penalties on the night as well, showing ultra composure. And to finish a World Cup with 8 goals and 2 assists to his name, you know, he takes home the Golden Boot, but not to win the World Cup on a basis of that tournament is a bit unfair.
He's got time.
But having said that, I thought France were pretty useless for the first 70, 75 minutes. I mean, they didn't have a shot for 67 minutes. Mbappe was being marshalled out of the game pretty effectively by Molina. And it felt like whatever had gone on in the French camp this week with illness, and we heard about Rabiot, Upamecano, Varane, Coman, who actually came on and had a really good impact off the bench as well. Some of those subs did, Colomwani and Thuram did as well. But it felt like that illness really sapped a lot of energy out of that Argentine performance, and out of that French performance. And Argentina found it so easy to just consistently break through the centre of the pitch. They weren't even having to work seemingly that hard. And France really couldn't get close to them at all. So for Mbappe to drag that French side to penalties pretty much single-handedly with some useful cameos off the bench was absolutely legendary stuff. And to be honest, he's probably got, you know, Messi's capped his amazing career with a World Cup. But in terms of, you know, consistent impact at 2 World Cups, Mbappe, you know, can't really be bettered since probably Pelé in the early days of his career. So he should be immensely proud of his World Cup and performance, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, Messi's 97th and 98th goals for Argentina, by the by. But like you said, both had an interesting supporting cast. So let's talk about the best of the rest then before we move to our losers and who kind of might have let themselves down in this final. Let's stay with France then, because, I mean, Deschamps made a lot of substitutions and, for the most part, you know, got them correct. Do you want to talk about Muani's performance, or maybe Camavinga's, Thuram's? You take your pick.
Well, I thought that, I don't know, I guess Muani was the one who I thought changed the game the most. It felt like when he came on, he immediately showed a little bit of unpredictability coming inside from the wide areas to combine. And that was also helped, I guess, by playing Mbappe through the middle a little bit more. So you had less of a conventional kind of static positioning system. But it felt like Muani was comfortable drifting into the wide areas, comfortable competing with the centre-backs for aerial balls, almost got a goal very, very late on in extra time, which would have been phenomenal. Great save from Emi Martinez. But there were stages of the game where we felt that he was kind of the only French player who seemed to be really putting in maximal effort. I mean, in these games, as much as we can talk about dribbles and shots and key passes and passes into the final third, sometimes you do just need to want to win the World Cup and do need to be making an effort to do so. And it felt like he was tracking back and that he was willing to take on his man at a point where France as a whole looked like their plan was really, I don't know, maybe Mbappe will do something. Yeah. So I was really impressed by him. And of course, after that winning goal in the ultimately decisive goal, I suppose, in the game before this, it just feels like Muani has kind of announced himself at a higher level.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I think in terms of what stood out from his game, not so much what he was doing in the opposition's final third with regards to output, but in terms of his application and effort. 8 ball recoveries, 5 out of 6 aerial duels won. He even won 4 fouls for his team. Just put himself about, as did Thuram, which we saw him make a great impact against Morocco. He did it again here. 3 dribbles completed, 4 out of 5 aerial duels won as well. Those 2 players provided France with a focal point that they didn't have in the first 50, 60 minutes in particular, right? Let's move on then to some other noteworthy performances from Argentina, Dukes. And on my shortlist, I've got Enzo Fernandez, who I've kind of been infatuated with this whole tournament, Angel Di Maria, and RDP, maybe to a lesser extent than those 2. His maybe a bit more of a nod for his tournament-wide performances. But who do you want to talk about out of them?
I mean, they're all 3 great suggestions. I'll give a quick shout out to Emi Martinez. As Pat says, that save is probably what I'll remember most of all from this final, which is kind of bizarre considering the action we saw. But to save with his foot in the dying moments of that game, Argentina then go up the other end as well. And it was just a phenomenal performance from him. Classic penalty mischief from Martinez as well, throwing away the ball for Tchouaméni to then go and collect, and then he misses the penalty. But I thought Di Maria was absolutely phenomenal, and he has really been Argentina's big game player throughout his entire career. He scored the winning goal in the Copa America. He scored a goal in the Finalissima against Italy as well. I think he got the goal in the 2008 Summer Olympics as well that Argentina won. And he is just, whenever he is fit, Di Maria is a phenomenal player, and some people love to hate him, particularly Man United fans, but even at his spell at Man United, the great flop of his career, he was still phenomenal for 10, 15 games. Then unfortunately he was a victim of a burglary and slightly went off the ball, and his wife was very unhappy there. But even when he's been at Juventus, he's been excellent when he's been fit as well. And in this game, 3 key passes, 4 dribbles. You'd never guess his age on this performance. The amount of times he was just burning past, I think it was in particular Koundé, who had an absolute shocking performance, to be honest, Jules Koundé, along with Rabiot. I thought they was one of the weaker French performers. So Di Maria was excellent, and Rodrigo de Paul as well, quick shout out for him. Had a real shocker in the first game against Saudi Arabia, was at fault for that second goal with Aldaharra sort of turning him at the edge of the box and then arcing that ball into the top right-hand corner. But since then, Rodrigo de Paul has been absolutely sensational. I saw the running stats before the final. Don't know how much ground he covered in this final, but it felt like he was just eating up turf. But he was the most distance covered for Argentina as well, and I thought he was everywhere tonight. And Alexis McAllister as well was shining once again. So all round, Argentina, they had way more notable performers than France and were worthy winners for me. Yeah, just to encapsulate the point you're making about Di Maria being a big game player. I think prior to this, 28 finals, 11 goals, 2 assists. Wow. A man for the big occasion, and Koundé was the most relieved man in Qatar when he came off, and they lost all of that threat down the left-hand side, despite Acuna, applying himself, trying hard. they lost quality down the left-hand side when he came off, and to still be that important to that team at 34,
amazing. And we were sort of looking at their bench, weren't we? A lot of talent in central areas, Argentina, but still lacking world-class wingers. Let's move on to some losers then, who maybe let us down in this final. I mean, should we start with Giroud and Dembele because they were hauled off after 40 minutes in a very brave double substitution by Deschamps? Was it brave or was it necessary? A bit of both?
It kind of felt like it was as much about making a point as it was about maybe changing the way his team was playing. I think he just felt at this stage that Giroud was certainly being very easily handled, and Dembele, I don't know what was going on with him today. It felt like Dembele recently has rediscovered, and when I say recently, over the last year, has rediscovered the player that he was at Borussia Dortmund. And here he kind of rediscovered the player he was when he left Borussia Dortmund. I don't really know kind of whether there was something else going on that we don't know about, whether there was talk that maybe Giroud had taken a knock and was needing to come off because of that. But overall, it's hard to say that it didn't work in this game. I mean, frankly, though, Koundé could have come off. Tchouaméni, if there'd been a reasonable replacement for him, did not have a good start to the match either. And overall, the passing, because you expect Tchouaméni to set the tone for the passing, him and Rabiot. Well, Rabiot had, 19 passes in the first half? Absolutely atrocious. And when you look at France's passing overall, 77% pass success in this game, which is nearly 8% below their average for the tournament. They just simply could not get that game moving through midfield. Well, you'd expect the midfielders to kind of get their foot on the ball and make that happen. But it was only when the game became more unstructured, more chaotic, a bit more of a track meet, that it felt like certainly Theo Hernandez came alive. That helped with Mouani and Thuram as well. And suddenly France managed to go through the gears a bit. But to be honest with you, I thought that most of the impressive France performances in this game were really against the ball. It was guys like Upamecano who were good, and everybody else I thought was kind of just okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of credit should go to RDP and Enzo Fernandez for muddying up that midfield battle with France.
And Alexis McAllister as well.
Yeah, and I think Enzo Fernandez, I don't know if it's already been said, 7 tackles, 77 passes completed with an 85% success rate. And 85% is about what you'd expect a top-level midfielder to put up in any given 90, right? But this game got really frantic at points, and he really just kept a cool head in all areas of the pitch. A couple of last-ditch tackles in there as well. Really, really impressive. I'm going to suggest Lautaro Martinez as my letdown in this game. I know ultimately he's on the winning side and he won't care that he had 4 shots and missed what ought to define as 2 big chances. But that header at the end, dude, we were thinking if that's what robs Messi of the perfect end to a perfect career, like I've said before, I mean, it'd have been in my hall of shame forever.
Yeah. I mean, he started the first game against Saudi Arabia as well and had a couple of goals ruled out for offside, and that sort of ended up dictating his entire tournament. Just couldn't get his game going. I mean, it's not really his. Normally, he's more of a foil for a target man. I don't think leading the line really suits him that well. He's played his best football over the last 3 years playing off Lukaku. But Julian Alvarez, since coming into the side, he finishes with 4 goals. But his running today, he's just unstoppable. It just doesn't drop. And I was amazed that he stayed on for so long, because the guy must have been absolutely exhausted. I know he's still pretty young, but that was a hell of a performance. But yeah, it felt like Scaloni throughout this tournament has been reasonably good at adapting to his own mistakes. Like, he probably got his midfield wrong in the Saudi Arabia game as well. Enzo Fernandez, I think, came in for that Mexico game. We've seen McAllister be more introduced into the side. And he's quickly realised that, you know, it's okay to get things wrong in international management, but you need to react pretty fast to it. You can't really lose 2 games at the World Cup, otherwise you're pretty much out. So, yeah, I think he's adapted really well to it. And fair play in his first managerial job. I was reading before the tournament started that Rodrigo de Paul was like, when he says, if he says go to bed, it's 10 a.m. like we go to bed. They just absolutely love him. They believe in his tactical tweaks, etc. And to win a World Cup in your first managerial job, like, you should probably just retire. That's it. Won't get better.
No, I think that's a really good point. Zero ego about the way he sets up his sides. Right, very fast to admit when he gets it wrong, and easy to forget that Papu Gomez started in that midfield 3 against Saudi Arabia, and then was it Guido Rodriguez, and then Enzo Fernandez, and then he's like, right, I've cracked it. And crack it he did. I mean, is there anything else you boys want to talk about from this game? Because we did cover an awful lot on this week's Sunday Vibes when it came to, we did an alternative World Cup awards, so go and watch that if you feel slightly, unfulfilled at this point by our World Cup content. Pretty harsh if you do. Content Network did an underrated.
Yeah, we did. Underrated 11. Yeah, I think 11. One goal I particularly, often when you've seen a game like that, it's really difficult to remember specific moments and the absolute drama. But the Argentina's second goal with the one-touch football through it, I thought was one of the best team goals of the tournament. Absolutely loved that goal. And it's just so satisfying that Lionel Messi, who's had a pretty difficult time at World Cups, as everyone knew, hadn't scored a World Cup knockout goal before this, didn't score at all at the 2010 World Cup, missed some chances in the 2014 final, has just produced the best football of his career, probably across these games, at least for Argentina, the best football of his career. So there's just an immense sense of satisfaction that you have watched the true legend of our generation fulfill his lifelong ambition and end all debates about who the greatest of all player of all time is.
Elements of that Brazil goal, that's finished off by Carlos Alberto in the build-up to the goal you're talking about with the slick interplay and exchanges of passes. I'm absolutely shattered, mate. Have you got anything that you want to mention before we sort of we ditch this thing?
Just that I like that Argentina did this playing good football. I really think they did. Argentina, you would be forgiven looking at that squad for expecting them to play anti-football. But actually, in the end, France played much more like the Argentina of old. This team that basically says, oh, we've got this one star and he's going to solve it for us. That's how this final went, partially because Griezmann had a bad game. But Argentina played great football throughout this tournament. Not just the second goal in this game today, but that third goal as well. It was such crisp passing. And in the first half, I just thought this is the way that I've always wanted Argentina to play. And they couldn't do it when they had Ayala or Zabaleta or Mascherano or Zanetti or any of these guys, Higuain, Aguero. So many amazing players have been part of this Argentina side over the last maybe 20 years. And at no point have they played football like this, except for maybe one goal, which is that Cambiasso goal. And today they did it several times in the World Cup final, showed what they're capable of. And that, to me, is really exciting. I think it's an incredible legacy for Messi to leave Argentina in this position.
Yeah, just a team in the truest sense, right?
Yeah.
And shout out to Montiel for scoring the winning penalty after conceding a penalty. So many lovely little narratives in there. And I'm just so relieved that the main man himself gets to potentially leave the international stage with the World Cup, cradling the World Cup in his arms. Right, that is it from us on Winners and Losers. Thank you very much for tuning in to our World Cup content these past months, or month even. We've had an absolute blast. Like this video and subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and we'll see you very soon when Premier League action commences once more. And Dukes will, of course, see you on Eurofootball Daily. And Pat will see you everywhere because the man is omnipotent, like Messi. Goodbye.